Kenya is at the forefront of financial inclusion revolution we're seeing in Africa, with innovation, partnerships reshaping access to credit and financial tools. The potential to uplift communities and drive economic growth has never been greater. Today, I'm joined by three leaders spearheading the transformation across the continent. Naik, the Regional President and CEO of TransUnion, Mr. Maina, the CEO of TransUnion Kenya, and Jashan, our Director from Credit Bureau Alliances at FICO. Let's start with the big picture. Financial inclusion is a cornerstone of economic empowerment, yet nearly 10% of Kenyan adults remain financially excluded, and many more face barriers to accessing credit. Lee, why is financial inclusion such an important thing to TransUnion?
Well, when we think about financial inclusion, it's arguably Africa's biggest problem. When we think about the problem, it's a problem that affects some 500 million people on our continent that aren't actively participating in the financial system. Myself, I grew up in a township in apartheid South Africa. My family knows what it means to be excluded from financial inclusion, to not have the tools to allow us to access a wallet, a store of our money, and to participate actively in the economy. And at TransUnion, we believe that we can help solve this problem, not just by ourselves, but through our partners. A partner like FICO that's working actively with us to solve a problem that allows us to see the potential in consumers. And equally so, we recognize that it's not just the consumers or the citizens that need empowerment. We recognize that in Africa, small businesses make up 70% of employment on the continent. Our hope is that we can equally help these small businesses access the funds they need to create the jobs that will help Africa realize its potential. So it's a combination of thinking about the holistic problem that affects both communities and the businesses that will grow our economy, and working with partnerships like those at FICO to allow us to bring the best of TransUnion to bear and the best of our partner FICO to bear in solving this important problem.
Lee, you mentioned that financial inclusion is more than just access. You referenced that you came from a township and the dynamic that your family needed to experience to become financially included. Do you have more live examples of how communities can drive financial inclusion and opportunities within the communities to solve for it?
Well, absolutely. I think a large part of today's conversation is about Kenya. By being South African myself, I've seen the benefit of how when we apply technology to this problem, we see the solution start to solve it. Probably the best example I can give you is how we focus on helping drive general financial inclusion, but then focusing on probably two segments. How do we empower the youth? And more importantly, how do we empower women to access financial services? One of the examples more recently was when we had a young woman who was completely eligible to access financing. She was an entrepreneur in the informal economy. With the traditional tools that were being used, we were unable to see her potential. When you bring the innovation that we have at our disposal, we saw her potential, and I'm pleased to report that not only was she able to access financing, she was able to empower a small business, and that led to several people accessing employment in her township. That's a story of what's possible. The real benefit of what we're doing right now, what we're talking about today, is a globally proven way of thinking about inclusion. And as I mentioned earlier, the 500 million people that are excluded, it's only a matter of time before we solve this challenge. It is not easy for the lenders, for the community. It requires both a combination of education to people that they can in fact access opportunities, but equally so for the financial services economy to want to participate in uplifting our townships.
Jashan, FICO's been a strategic partner of TransUnion's globally for decades. What's different about this collaboration?
FICO has pioneered in credit scoring for over 60 years, where the FICO Score brand has been trusted in over 40 markets globally. This partnership aims to bridge gaps, bringing advanced analytics together with deep market insights, reshaping financial inclusion in Kenya. Our credit scoring model has been developed to provide a clear, reliable picture of credit readiness. For lenders, this means more consistent decisions, extending credit to the right consumers. And for consumers, this turns simple opportunities into tangible realities.
You've touched on the differences of the FICO score compared to others, but tell us more about how this particular FICO score stacks up against some of the traditional credit scores.
The FICO score for Kenya has been developed specifically for the dynamic credit market in Kenya. The data showed that over 90% of Kenyan consumers utilize some form of microlending. So the uniqueness of the FICO model is that it's a single score that caters for both micro and traditional lending products. This inclusivity is a game changer as it builds trust and a more resilient credit ecosystem.
So, Morris, TransUnion has just introduced two groundbreaking solutions into the Kenyan market, the FICO scores and CV variables. Tell us how you see these two solutions solving the Kenyan financial exclusion problem.
Kenya is a leader in digital financial inclusion, with over 84% of population using mobile money services. However, adoption of these financial tools is not enough if it does not translate to meaningful possibilities and opportunities for the population. And that is where FICO score and credit vision variables come in. Credit vision variables analyze over 145 data points, and that includes trended data that covers up to 24 months of consumer behavior. This comprehensive view of consumer behavior enables our lenders to make even more smarter and informed decisions. What we've seen from some of the global markets where we have rolled out CV variables is that lenders who have integrated it into their risk management strategies have noted over 20 to 30% enhancement in their risk predictability, which is a great thing. And of course, that has an impact into the approval rates that they realize for their businesses. Of course, additionally, like it was mentioned by Josh here, we are also introducing a cutting-edge credit scoring solution that is developed by FICO, but more importantly, we are using data, TransUnion data locally from Kenya market. The predictive power of Kenya-specific FICO solution across all types of loan products that exist in the market is significantly high. And this includes predictive power on mobile and digital loans. And you appreciate the Kenyan context that all scorable consumers that we have in our market have at least one or two digital or micro loan, which makes it extremely powerful. And what that does, it opens doors for credit access. With it, of course, if it's a small business, they're able to acquire more inventory and drive their business, grow their business. We see also impact to ordinary population in terms of getting resources that they can educate their families, and that creates really tangible and sustainable impact. Of course, these are not just tools for credit assessment. They offer meaningful opportunities that change lives for the population.
The financial inclusion challenge is bigger than just Kenya. Scalability is obviously going to be a challenge. How do you ensure that this solution scales to other regions in Africa?
These solutions have been built with scalability in mind. Of course, Kenya is lucky to be first to market where these solutions are landing. However, the insights and learnings that we are going to get out of Kenyan market are easily transferable to the rest of Africa and other markets. Of course, the play for us is building a financial inclusion model that can expand to the entire continent of Africa.
What excites you the most about solving this financial inclusion problem in Kenya?
That's a great question. It's about the stories and possibilities that we are creating. It's about the small business that can now dream big. It's about the families that can invest in education. It's about the communities that we are uplifting. These solutions are not just tools, but they are catalysts for an even more sustainable future for the population in our country.
Lee, as we look to the future, what long-term impact do you see these solutions having in Africa?
Well, in the end, we're looking to solve this big problem that Africa has, financial inclusion, some 500 million people. For me, this is more than technology. It's more than innovation. If we are lucky, we'll enable millions of people to participate actively in the financial system, to create small businesses that give rise to employment. And in the end, there's no doubt that Africa will be successful. Our hope as TransUnion and FICO is to be part of the solution that helps us release our African potential.
Lee, Morris, and Jash, thank you for your leadership and your innovation that you're bringing to the continent. I get the sense that we're solving for the biggest problem that we have in Africa, the financial inclusion challenge. I'm excited to see the outcome of this good work that you're doing on the continent.